Well, this is something different today. It's time we fitted an aerial onto a vehicle. Now, this camera is pointing at the moment at Mr. Chippy's Nissan Almera, which is a 2004 car, and he really feels this will be the last year he'll be running this. You know, with 190,000 on the clock, and of course, anything that's 16 years old, however well maintained, you know, is going to be coming to the end of the road. So. We may be in the middle of nowhere, but there's still vehicles go up and down this lane. So this tripod could have been with being a bit taller. So what we have, if I just move the whole thing round. Oh, we're in the sun, aren't we? We'll move the whole thing round. So towards the back of the vehicle, we've got the pretend modulator, and in the centre there's a UHF stubby aerial for the 77's ham radio equipment that he has installed. My Hyundai car is behind, and behind that's a skip, so we're talking about the car, not the skip. We could mount an aerial on the skip. We've got building work here, but we're under this coronavirus lockdown at the moment, and all building works had to stop. And considering there's a leaking roof, there's a flat roof extension which went on this property in the 1970s, and when we moved here in 1985 there was a bit of leaking, so we did have it redone. So roll forwards to 2000 and there's a bit of a leak, so that needs sorting out. But of course I can't ask any builders to come and do it, so we've taken everything out of that room, and that was one of the workshops, so we're without that at the moment. Well, on this Hyundai we've got the CB aerial, which is a dialer match at the front, and then there's a 555/8 UHF collinear for 77s. We also have another vehicle which I'll walk over towards, and this one's a 1996 Toyota. I had an uncle who passed away when he was in his 90s, and this was his car, and about 6 months before he passed away, I went to see him on Boxing Day. He lived over in Sheffield, which is really where the family came from. This was my late father's brother, and he said to me, "Do you want my car?" I says, "It's when I pass away." I says, "It's not worth anything." I said, "Well, I suppose a spare car would always be useful. Thanks very much." Sadly, he passed away about 2 months after that conversation. There's a little note in with his will which says, "To my nephew, my worthless Toyota car." So, but it came with 34,000 on the clock, so and it does 41 to the gallon as an automatic, so there's nothing wrong with it. So it's staying here at the moment. But I've only put a mag mount on for the UHF 555/8s. But we do have this, is it Serio Performer 1000 on the roof for Citizens Band. So that's the R-Reg in British terms, Toyota Corolla. It's never missed a beat, so there we go. And so to the whole point of this video, this is a Nissan Leaf which we bought a few weeks ago, just before the coronavirus lockdown. So that's an electric car, and one of the things we want to do with this is to use this instead of Mr. Chippy's Nissan Almera as the normal car that we do the range testing when we go to Scratchy Corner and over on those 6 miles routes. It's not going to cost us anything in petrol, and as part of the building work there's supposed to be 6 kilowatt solar panel scheme going on the property, so you know it's not going to cost much to run at all, so it seemed to be a good idea. So that was that. We did a little test drive with both a UHF hand portable and with one of those emergency kit, was it the Midland, the we did the Midland one, didn't we? I said we'd gone on a test drive with it, and that's why we'd used it. So we wanted to make sure that the car didn't generate interference, and it didn't on that test. So let's hope we're okay when we actually fit a CB into it. So we're going to stick with the Midland 78 plus multis. I took one out of the car we've retired. We took a Hyundai off, which was 2007, and replaced it with this. So that's what this is about. So I like drilling holes in cars, so that's what we're going to do. So on this car, there is a courtesy light in the middle of the roof. So there we have a courtesy light in the middle of the roof. Now this airbag has got this car has airbag side curtains in the A pillars, probably in the B pillars as well, in the back seats, and it's got airbags for airbags, so it's not going to be that user friendly to put the cables in. So apart from drilling the windscreen and running the cable down the centre of that, we're going to have to come up with some clever ideas. And what we're going to use, I'll just move the as we always do on these, and I'll just move it into view, is one of the Sirio 3/8 stud mounts. We've been using these for donkeys. I think it's changed slightly. And then you have what we call a TA connector. We can use the high quality coaxial cable that we use for business radio installations, because our electronics two-way radio thing is business two-way radio main. I know you see me doing citizens band radios, but primarily we're doing business radios. And so the cable we use is good for 1 gig, no problem at all. And the secret to good range is the cable. You can buy many a cheap aerial, especially mag mounts, and the cable connected to it is absolute trash. So I'm going to show you some of that cable. But first of all, we're going to make sure that we can drill into this car satisfactorily. So having popped out the centre courtesy light and jamming a torch in there, we can actually see that you've got the plate that holds the courtesy light, and then beyond that there's a strengthening piece, and I've measured to the centre of the hole we've got 18 centimetres, so we can't kind of have it in the middle. Now the courtesy light is equal to, when I get this right, the centre B pillar. And so from the centre B pillar we need to measure 18 centimetres back, and then the centre. So we'll do that, and then we'll get the drill out and hope we've got it somewhere near. At least it's my car. So the initial pilot hole is done with 1/8 of an inch, or in metric a 3mm bit. So we'll put that in the cheap Aldi cordless drill. So because the car has a entertainment aerial in the centre of the roof at the back, I've tied a piece of wire to that, run it down to the front, and of course this here is the centre, so scotch taped it to there, and a piece of scotch tape 18 centimetres plus back from the aperture for the courtesy light. So hopefully that lines us up. So now we'll go in with that 3mm drill. So hopefully it'll be somewhere near. I'd hate it to end up inside in a piece of strengthening bit. Right, we'll see where that ended up inside. So if I pull down the head lining, we should be able to see daylight, you can see the strength there, and then a couple of inches back we've got the hole showing daylight, so that's where we want it. So that one worked out right. So next we'll take that drill bit out, the 3mm or 1/8 of an inch, and replace it with the 10mm or 3/8 of an inch. And then we'll take this slowly and steadily through the roof. Take away that bit of wire now as well. So we've now got the 10mm hole. So, one step, second one. So there we have the 12mm step. So I'm now going to offer up the stud mount to see whether we're anywhere near. So far for their 12.5mm, that's perfect. It's not loose and it's not body bound. I'm going to brush off that debris. Before we go on to that, I decided to vacuum it off, and I'm using that small step, which is quite substantial because I weigh 18.5 stone, so whatever that is in kilos, no idea. For those of you not in the UK, one of the most popular vacuum cleaners is the Henry from Pneumatic Industries, and we have a blue one of these which does carpet washing, and we've got some ceramic floors. And they do a Charles, and they do a Hetty, they do a pink one which is the same as that, but it's a girly one. So everybody and a dog seems to have a Henry vacuum cleaner in the UK. So what I've done here is to put some Scotch tape between the back windows in a hope of holding the mount down. It's very difficult to do this on your own, and although Mr. Chippy's got stuck down here away from his home 95 miles from where he lives during this coronavirus situation, he doesn't seem to be around at the moment, so I'm going to put the nut on from the inside, hopefully on my own. What I forgot to do was to remember what size spanner I needed to do the nut, so I've got another aerial base out. We'll borrow the nut and we'll see what spanner. I think we're going to have to use a conventional type of spanner. 17mm. I don't know whether it's supposed to be, but anyway, that's what fits, 17mm. So I'll just see whether I can tighten it up. So I dug out the RS pen torch to the left of the spanner there, so I could see where I was putting the spanner through the hole. I'm going to just take a break and we'll start on the making up the cable, because my hand wants a rest from getting through an aperture and trying to tighten that up. I would say we're 2/3 of the way there, so we'll come back to that and I'll make up the cable. In fact, I decided that I deserved a cup of coffee in between, and I thought we may as well use the I've been to Scratchy Corner mug, so I thought we'd just get that in shot. Well, I can't believe it, I haven't got a TA connector, so there's a used one there. I don't want to mess about with the used one. I think we're not that desperate, so we're going to abandon the job. I've ordered some. I can't believe I haven't got them. The trouble is we're having building work here and things have got put into storage boxes, and we probably have got them. It's just knowing which storage box they're in. So what I'm going to do, we'll go back to the car and I think we'll start looking at the possibility of putting a power lead in. So there we are with the bonnet up, or hood if you're in America. So we've got a normal 12-volt battery there, and I'm hoping that there's some space that we can drill through the bulkhead. Gone are the days when you got blanking grommets for things which weren't fitted, so we'll look into that. I'll look at taking the what we call the glove box out of the passenger side. So what I've been able to do, I've not had to drill the bulkhead. There is a cable form, goes through just there, and at the top of there I've been able to drill a 7mm hole through the rubber, and with the surgical scissors I've put it through from the far side. So what we're now going to try and do, I have to pause this, is with the surgical scissors I've been able to pull it through. So no holes, just through the grommet. And at the bonnet side, you see it's just going there. All I had to do was to pop a connector out of the way. Which is, I've just shoved down there. That just needs to go back on that bracket, and this little fuse box which I've just took off that bracket. So we'll just get some cable ties onto that, and of course that's straight to the battery, and we'll be putting an inline fuse at the battery. This wire's just 3 amp stuff because the CB isn't going to ever take more than 1.5, so we're well in there. So there we are with it connected to the 12-volt battery, and you'll see there's an inline fuse there. We use 1 1/4 inch fuses, and it's fused at 3 amps, and that's the wire that you saw me put through the little slit we put in the cable entry grommet. So that's the bonnet end, and that's the lead as it comes from under where we've got the glove box to go back yet, and that's just to what we call leg moving is Mr. Chippy, and we just do them to those connectors and we'll put the CB into that. So we're just going to have another go with the spanner and just finish off the aerial itself, and then we'll have to put this to bed for a couple of days while that part arrives. I think in the meantime we may just service the CB that was in the other car, and I'll bring back the video camera and we'll just do a bit of filming putting the actual CB itself in. Okay, so we now have the radio in position and it's lit up. So let's move that back and hopefully we can just see the radio is connected. We've not put the glove box, I can't even speak, we haven't put the glove box back in yet because we've got the aerial cable to run through when the connector finally arrives in a couple of days time. So we're going to have to leave this video at this point, and it is all, the radio's just been serviced and it's just waiting for that connector. And whilst I wasn't looking, Mr. Chippy put a new Red Thunder aerial, which is basically a copy, a cheap copy. I think they're about £12.99 of the modulator long coil aerial. We use these because they're cheap and they work. Doesn't mean they're going to last as long as what the modulator ones do. What we have found is in extreme heat they start to bend, and by the time Mr. Chippy's done 70 miles an hour down the motorway for a few weeks, we've noticed in heat that they can have a bend in them. But anyway, they seem to last about 3 years and they're cheap enough to replace. So we're going to leave it at that, and part 2 we'll get that aerial connector in and I'll show you how it's SWR'd.